Hello lovely people, I'm K3N and welcome to Wonky Wednesday. This week I want to revisit the half square triangle, and I say revisit because we looked at it, if you're following the Monday project, way back in week something or other, back in the mists of time when we made the friendship star. And I thought it bears repeating because for the friendship star it was just 4 blocks making the points. So I'm going to make 16 blocks so I can put them together in 4x4 configuration and make some kind of pattern. Now I say some kind of pattern because there are many different variations. So what you'll need is you'll need 8 squares of, you need 2 contrasting cloths. So I've got 8 scrappy squares. This is only one because the others are there under a book being pressed. I did try to iron. I got the iron out. I had every good intentions because my cloth was all rumply from being in the scrap basket. I got the iron out, but it's got a French plug on it, so I need to put an English plug on it, and the tools are in the shed and it's dark and raining and, you know, excuses. So you need 8 squares of a colour and 8 squares of, I've got 8 squares, 8 different coloured squares and 8 squares of this cream cloth. You could of course use 8 of one colour and 8 of another, or lights and darks or whatever. I've gone for plain cream and 8 pattern squares. You'll see them all in a bit. And my squares are 2 inches. Now your squares want to be an inch bigger than you want your little unit to end up. I'll show you one of the units. I'll get it out from under its book. So here's the little unit. So this little unit now measures 1.5 inches. So these were 2 and now it's 1.5 inches. And then obviously when I join it to its neighbours, you're going to lose another 1/4 inch each side, so it's going to end up 1 inch. So 2 inches will become 1 inches. Does that make sense? It needs to be 1 inch bigger. So if you wanted to end up with 2-inch squares, then you cut your squares 3 inches, and so on. So then what you do is you get, I normally draw on the lighter square because it shows up better. So you want the wrong side of your light square, and I just used an ordinary pencil and ruler and I just drew a line across one of the diagonals, corner to corner, like so. And I did that on all my light squares. And then you put it right sides together with the other square, and if you want to put a pin or 2, then you need to pin well away from the line. And then I've got just some piecing cotton. The orts aren't winking at you. And then you're going to stitch 2 lines either side of the drawn line. So you need to be somewhere in the region of 1/4 inch. You know, if you want to measure and draw a line 1/4 inch exactly, you go for it. I'm just going to eyeball it. As long as you're consistent, you know, if accuracy worries you. If it's slightly less or slightly more, it doesn't matter. As long as all the seams are the same. And I'm going to just take a little back stitch to start because I haven't put a knot in my thread. And then I'm just going to stitch myself along about 1/4 inch away from that pencil line until I get to the other end. And this is great if you've got lots of little square scraps. These are the kinds of things you could just sit and make them and then just keep them in a little basket and then use them in other things. Because, you know, to add a sort of triangle element to work, I think it's nice because I work with a lot of strips and a lot of squares. And when I stitch, I put a lot of circles, so, you know, a triangle's another shape. And so if you've got them all made ready to go, you can just include them, you know. So when I get to the other end, I'm going to take another back stitch. Not get a knot in my thread. There you go. I'm going to take another little back stitch, and I'm not going to cut my thread. And I'm going to turn it round, and then I'm going to jump across to stitch down the other side 1/4 inch away. Do you see that little piece of thread now is laying across there? That'll get cut in a minute when we cut them apart. So I'm going to take another back stitch here to anchor this end. And I just think that is less hassle and more economical of thread than cutting and starting again. It'll get cut in a minute. And then I'm just going to stitch all the way down the other side. Again, in the region of 1/4 of an inch. And then we can get them all out and have a play with them. Yes, I really did want to press them so that they all laid nice and flat whilst I fiddled about with layouts. So that's why I've got them under a book. I thought, oh, they'll all be so proud of me ironing, or shocked, or, you know, whatever. I got the iron out, and, oh, French plug. That doesn't work. So another back stitch to finish. Ouch, stabbed myself. Cut the thread. And then just get my scissors, my snippies. I'm just going to cut on that drawn line from corner to corner, all the way across. So now it's 2 little triangles. And then I'm going to open it up, and I always just press the seams towards the darker cloth because it might show through the light coloured cloth. That's just a convention. I'm just going to do it with my thumbs. I go from the middle out, and I'm not too rough with it because that's a bias edge, so you know, if it worries you. And now you see you've got these 2 little pointy pointers. I'm going to snip them off, like known as dog ears, just to neaten it up. And there's my 1 little half square triangle unit. I'll try and put a link, but there are millions. If you Google half square triangle quilt blocks or half square triangle quilts, something like that, you'll get layout ideas galore. But so you can make, you know, a whole piece only with these, or you can use them, like I said, with other things. So cut those little ears off. Seems mean cutting off dog ears. They're not real dogs, they're not real ears. There we go. So let's bring in all these others, hoping they've been squashed a bit by my big heavy book. Here's my little stack. So obviously now I've got pairs of them. So whether I worry about that when I'm doing my layout or not, we'll see. I'm going to have a sip of my tea, Red Bush, in case you're interested. So often people ask me what tea I'm drinking, so that's why I now tell you. Excuse me. So I've got, you know, they're really scrappy. Purple. I can hear some of you going, purple-diculate. I'm sorry. All different colours. So, oops, I picked up 2 there. I think I'm going to do some kind of star, because I just like stars. So if you're going 4 by 4, let's start in the middle. I think that's the best way. I mean, you can just play about, basically. So let's have... No, let's do it like... So you could make lines. Do you see when I put those 2 together like that? And apparently I'm going to play about before I actually do what I intend to do. So you could put them like this. Do you see how they're making? Of course you see how they're making lines if you're watching me. I'm not gone back to your knitting. Do you see? So you could lay them out something like that. And make lines. It would have been handier if I'd ironed them, wouldn't it? Do you see what I mean? Do you see why I wanted to iron them? You can do chevrons, so you can just zigzag the lines like this. Can't get no, not like that, Catherine. Like this. Well, that's going that way. That needs to go that way. You know, alternate them. Excuse me, like that. You can put them back together in squares. So you've got scrappy squares made of 4 different coloured triangles. Like that. That's kind of cool. In fact, maybe we'll start with that for the middle. I quite like that. To turn it a bit straighter there. I think I'll start with that for the middle. So then my star is going to have points like that, and like that, and I haven't had that one. Like, no, like that, and like, I don't know why I keep saying like that. Stop saying like that. That way. Let's put some pins to hold them down. I'm so sorry about my iron. It would have been much handier. I'm going to pin them down into submission. The ones that won't stay put. Now that's pink and purple, and they're too close in colour. I'm going to put that one, I think. Whoops. So yeah, I really recommend that you iron yours if your iron doesn't have the wrong kind of plug on. Let's have this one now. But we're getting there. I'm going to put this one over there, and then you have to fiddle about for hours if it bothers you that you've got, you know, I've got two reds next to each other. Swap it with that one. I'll swap that with that. Then I'm going to put this one here, I think. And we need some of this. You see the star emerging, I hope. I hope you do. And then the last one can be this. So there you see, now I've got I'll run out of pins in a minute. You see the star? So now for the corner pieces, I think I'm going to put them this way round, so those make little corners. You could, of course, as well, if you wanted to, make your star and then just do plain squares for the corners. That would be another option, if you wanted to do that. So that one can go over there. There we go. That one can go there. And that one can go there. There you go, see? I made a star. So now all I have to do is sew that lot all together. So what I generally do, and I've said it I think many times, is I leave it laid out and then I pick it up, stitch it, put it down and so on. Otherwise I sew the wrong thing to the wrong thing. So I'm going to do the classic thing that we've done whenever we've done this kind of piecing, and join them all into rows and then join the rows together. And that's going to take me quite some time. So, well, I'll join a couple and then I'll go away and do that. So I'm going to join this one to this one and get that pin out of the way. So I'm just going to flip that over onto there and pick it up so I know that's where I have to sew. If you want to pin, you know, go for it. And I'm just going to... and also because I pressed the two seams, the seams always towards the darks, you see how they do that nesty thing that we've talked about before. They nest together there. Do you see? See the nesting? So I'm just going to sew the same 1/4 inch-ish all the way along there. And then I'm going to join the other two to make my first row of 4, and then I'm going to do it with the other 3 rows of 4, and then I shall come back and join 2 of the rows together with you. So I'll be back in a minute. No time at all for you. Okay, so I've done 3 rows and joined them together, and I've got my 4th row to join on. Just got my big scissors out of the way. I had to get a bigger backing square because the piece I had was not big enough, so now I've got a bigger one. Okay, so if you want your points to be, you know, mine aren't great to be honest, but if you want them to be pointy, this is where the obsessive pinning comes back in. So put it right sides together. So here and here, you want to sew through this point and this point together. So here I get a pin. Some longer pins would be handier, but anyway, I haven't got any here. And you put the pin through from the back through the point, and you should see where your two stitching lines meet. So put the pin through and then check the other side. You see how that pin's coming right through the point, and then get the other piece where it has to match up. You see those don't match already. We'll just go somewhere in between and pin through there in a straight line, so the two are hanging together on the pin. I hope you can see that. And then pinch it between your thumb and finger, and then don't turn the pin, take the pin out. If you turn it, you'll shift everything. And then put the pin back in, you know, in the normal way, and then hopefully those 2 points will match up somewhat. Now, in terms of what I said about the nesting seams, as I was stitching I realised that of course it depends how they meet, you know, because sometimes they won't nest, sometimes you'll have the seams going the same way. So all I did then was push them to one side, and that's why I often say that the proper way when you're hand piecing is not to sew through your seams, and that's so then as you're working, like, do you see there, this seam's coming this way and this seam's coming this way, so I'm going to have all that bulk there and no bulk there. So then what you can do is push one of those seams the other way and do the nesty thing. And if you haven't sewn your seams down, you can flip them one way or the other as you're working. I hope that makes sense, if that worries you. You know, I don't think it's a bad thing to tell you the proper way now and then. Doesn't mean you have to do it, doesn't mean that I do it. And then I'm going to pin that, of course I am. But obviously if you've sewn that seam down somewhere here, you can't move it, or you can, but you'll get a twist in it. So that's why you don't sew through your seams. And here again, I want them to nest, so I'm going to make sure they go opposite ways. I hope you can see what I'm doing if you care. And if you don't care, doesn't matter. So now I'm going to just sew 1/4 inch-ish along there. And again, to get those points to be pointy where they meet, you need to make sure that you sew through that line where the point is, you know, where your two lines of stitching meet in the corner of that triangle. Oh, and that's a lot of technical waffling, and now I'm exhausted. No, not really. I'm not exhausted, I'm fine. In fact, I must confess I had another sofa sleep. That seems to be becoming a thing. There, it's too thick for me to get my needle through all the seams, so I'm just going to tuck in behind. I went out this morning to deliver the work for the exhibition. I mentioned it in Monday's video, but I'm aware not all of you watch Monday as well. My group CQ West, our exhibition that was in Nailsworth back in May, which was called Unfolding Stories 6, is going to be hung in a gallery at the Symondsbury estate near Bridport in Dorset. And it opens on 28th of September and it's on until the 13th of October. I'll put a link in the description to the gallery's website. But I had been to the place before, years and years ago when I lived here before, but I haven't been for a long time, and I'd forgotten how wonderful it is. It really is, you know, if you're in this area of the world, a really nice place to visit. It's got the gallery, there's plants for sale, there's a nice little walk you can do. It's at the foot of Colmer Hill, which is quite a famous local hill. Is it called Colmer Hill? I'm now doubting it when I say it. I think that's what it's called. If it's called something else, it'll flash across the screen now. There are other independent makers there. There was a jeweller's, I think, and a clothing place. And a lovely cafe. We had some lunch after we'd, you know, sorted out the work and everything. Stella came with me. It was all very dog friendly, really nice. So yeah, so I'm looking forward to seeing our exhibition hanging there. I will be there myself on the 1st of October, which is Tuesday. And I'll be there for the morning, but I might stay and have some lunch and have a walk with Stella. So if you're coming on that day and you want to see me, if you let me know that you're coming, either here in the comments or if you can by private message. I try and read all the comments, but I'm sure sometimes I miss some. If you private message me, you know, anywhere, Facebook or Instagram or via Ko-fi, if you're one of my Ko-fi people, then I can be sure not to miss you. Yeah, it was a really interesting gallery space. It wasn't just sort of a rectangular room, it had modular walls and old beams, and you know, I'm really looking forward to seeing how they hang it. And the gallery, the people that run the gallery are going to hang it for us, which is unusual because usually we hang our own work. And it's always interesting to see how other people choose to, you know, display. And I will do a video, although I've done a video already of the work. There will be new work because Cara, whose exhibition I shared, her and Angela's a little while ago, hanging by a thread, has put work in which she didn't exhibit with us in Nailsworth, and a couple of other people have put little bits in, you know, to replace pieces that were sold before or whatever. But in principle, it's the same work. I keep saying that. I don't want anyone to turn up, you know, make a journey, and not realise that it's the same and they'd seen it in Nailsworth. But I will do a little video, probably not as detailed as the Nailsworth one. Fluff all over my scissors. Just to show you the space, because yeah, I'm really excited about it. Right, anyway, so I've done that seam. There's my finished little scrappy star, and I am quite happy with it. It's very lumpy and bumpy, but I'm going to stitch it into submission on this bit of linen. Obviously an iron would be the thing to do now. I'm going to put some pins. You could of course put a border around it if you wanted to, or you know, a plain border, or if you just want to use it for something else, rice bag, or just save it as it is, as a what they call an orphan block. I think it's quite a sad term to use, orphan block, but it is quite descriptive. You know, it's those leftover blocks that you either make just to try it out, or you've made a bigger piece and that block didn't make the grade, or you know, didn't get included for one reason or another. It's I might look at that at one point. I know not all of you are quilters and you might not have orphan blocks, but you might have odd bits from the projects hanging around. Maybe at one point we'll look at what we might do with some of those, if we don't want to all make rice bags all the time. Say that with a straight face. So I've just pinned all that all around the edge. I don't really know what I'm going to do to it. Probably some invisible basting all over wouldn't go amiss. That's probably what I should do. I think what I am going to do is stitch around the star and stitch around the edge and maybe stitch around the middle. I've got the orts here. There must be something. What about this? Is there enough of that? It's kind of a neutralish colour. Well, we'll start and see where we get it scrappy, so the threads can be scrappy as well. It's a super long lazy girl piece. Oh, where's my favourite needle? It must be in my pouch. So yeah, and yeah, and the other thing is, if you do want to come and see me, if you're, you know, if you can and you want to, there'll be Stella as well, because I'll bring Stella with me. I'm not leaving her home alone really at the moment. She is used to that, you know, she always has been used to that, and she's fine. I have left her once to go shopping, and I asked my neighbour to listen out for her, and my neighbour said she did cry a bit, so I just don't want her to be, you know, upset. And it's only been 2 weeks, it's, well, 2.5 weeks. It's quite unbelievable, really. I won't bring Fred. I think Fred's had enough of going in a car to last him a lifetime, or in a vehicle, having come all this way in the van. Okay, so I'm going to go round, I think I'm going to go round the inner square first. I'm going to go just inside the, you know, the seams. But you can obviously do whatever you like. So yeah, and I'm also aware that it was piecing in mid-air again after the G's Bend inspired one last week. So I'm sorry if you don't like piecing in mid-air, and we've done it 2 weeks running. But it's just what popped into my head, half square triangles. Wonky style. The other thing is, I'm very wonky there, that there will be an episode of Park Home Life this week. I've got some cheese boxes. I mentioned, I can't remember if it was Wonky Wednesday or a Monday, I mentioned that I wanted to get some apple crates or boxes or something to make shelving for my little stand-up studio area. And yeah, I've managed to get some cheese boxes, which need a bit of a clean, but they're, well, I think they're wonderful. If you like that sort of thing, you'll like them. If you don't like that sort of thing, you'll think they're awful and grubby, and why didn't I just go and get new shelves? But I like them. So I'm hoping that I've got time. I think I'll have time to put them up, and I can share that with you. My clock's bunging. We can count 3, 4, 5, 6. Is it 6? Oh no, it's 7. Oh, it's 7 o'clock. Yes, it's Tuesday evening, 7 o'clock. There you go. Or it's probably a bit later because my clock keeps going slow. Yes, so I want to share the cheese box shelving, and I've got a couple of other things as well that I won't reveal. I won't spoil the surprise. A couple of other things I want to share with you. I'll come back to the beginning. And I think I'll go around the inside of the points of the star. I'm just going to jump across. See, even though it's all lumpy and bumpy, as soon as you get some stitching into it to a foundation, and especially if you wanted to put wadding in or batting, that will, all the lumps and bumps will get hidden in that. So I'm just going to stitch around the outside edge of the star. Again, I'm about, I don't know, I'm not quite a quarter of an inch, but I'm a bit more than an eighth of an inch. What's that? 3/16 of an inch inside the seam line. I'm going to go in and come out up there. It's got this dark already, it seems to be, because here in the northern hemisphere obviously we're very much in autumn now, the end of September, and the evenings are drawing in. We've had very bad rain, and I believe in parts of the country they've had even worse rain the last couple of days, flooding and so on. So I hope wherever you are, you know, if you're somewhere where you've got flooding or any other natural things going on that aren't good, that you're safe and well. So I'm now listening to the clock ticking. Oopsie. Yes, no, the sound hasn't failed. I'm actually not talking for once. I don't think you can completely hear you obviously hear it chiming, but I can't, when I'm editing, I can't really hear it. I don't know if you can hear it. The ticking of the clock. Yeah, this is, and now when I see it like that, I just love the scrappiness of it, and I would like a whole quilt made of them, but of course I'm not going to do that. Well, I could do that, but I've got too much other. I've also got to prepare work for another exhibition going to be in Shaftesbury at the end of October, and it's work I've already made. You know, I've got some bits and bobs to put in. I'll give you more details nearer the time. But I've got some bits, you know, framing and finishing off and things like that to do as well. And my son's coming over at the end of October for a week. Joey's coming over. Lily can't come because she's busy with her studies, but she'll be here at Christmas. And they'll both be here at Christmas. So that'll be lovely for Joey to come over, because Lily came over when I was staying with my friend still. So she's seen, you know, I brought her here. I didn't have the key yet, so she didn't see inside, but she saw the outside and so on, the surroundings, and we had a little walk in the woods here. But Joey hasn't, only seen photos and videos, so. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. This cloth, this pink cloth with the green paisleys, I'm not a great fan of it. And this hasn't been tea dyed. I've got some somewhere that I've tea dyed that I like better. But I'm not a great fan of it as a piece, but when you put it in little tiny bits like this, then I do like it. That's another thing about cloth, you know. You might not like it as a great big lump, but you might like it little bits, or you might like it if you put it with something else. You know, it's tempting to just go, I don't like that. If you've got something, you know, a bit of old shirt, or I don't know, some cotton you've got laying about the place from wherever that you just don't like, try and look at it in other ways. Try and, you know, put your hands on it like that and look at a little small bit of it, or can you tea dye it, or look at the back of it. Sometimes the back of printed cloths are more pleasing. Or if you combine it with a contrasting colour, or if you put it with a light colour, or if you put it with a dark colour, there's, you know, they can look, colours and patterns can look completely different. See, I've got my my favourite sweater on, which I did have my sleeves rolled up, but it fell down. It's very old and mended. Yes, colours and patterns can appear completely different depending on who their neighbours are. I'm nearly round. A few of you said you appreciated the little tips I mentioned during the G's Bend video last week about, oops, just knocked my thread over, luckily not my tea, about, you know, making a design cohesive and all that, so, and that you'd like more of that, so I shall try and remember to mention things as they occur to me. And the thing about the pattern cloth just occurred to me because I was reminded by that pink and green paisley, which was an ex-neighbour of mine, a former neighbour of mine gave it to me when in a bundle of other bits, and I saw that and I thought, oh, I don't like that, but it sat in a box, and tea dyed some of it, and yeah. Okay, so that's the star all stitched down, and now I need to do something around the edge. I think I'll finish off there on the back. Could of course go to town on it. I think it would be nice to do lots of tiny seed stitch in all the cream areas. And to flatten it all down, and then the coloured areas would all pop up. But I won't do that now because I'm already quite long and I've not had my tea yet. Had a bit of a discussion in the Facebook group about what's tea, and you know, because well, even in England it varies from not only from region to region, probably from family to family, what you call the meals, you know. I mean, some people have, I think breakfast is pretty universal. I won't start talking about breakfast foods, that was a whole thing on Monday. But lunch can be dinner. In the north, it's dinner time, lunchtime. You know, and the midday meal is called dinner. Whereas in the south, what am I looking for now? Another bit of thread. In the south, dinner is the evening meal or supper. Other people call it supper, but in the north, supper is, and you know, it's broad generalisations. Like I said, it can vary from family to family. Supper is a little snack you have before bedtime. It might be a cup of cocoa and a biscuit, or you know, something like that. So yeah, but I'm, being from the north, call the evening meal tea, which is not. And actually around here I hear people calling it tea as well, here in the West Country. Calling it tea time. But there's also tea, the drink obviously, and then tea might be at sort of 4 in the afternoon, little sandwiches and cakes and tea. You know, and that might be called high tea up north, if it's posh. It's interesting how all these things evolve even within the same country. So tell me what you call the meals of the day, you know, breakfast, lunch, dinner, supper, however many meals you have. Hobbits, of course, have 2 breakfasts, don't they? They have a second breakfast, if you know Lord of the Rings. Right, so I'm going to, oh no, I was going to stitch round first, getting ahead of myself, put my journal away again. So I'm going to stitch round on 3 sides and then use the 4th line of stitching to stitch it to, stitch it to my journal. I'm still not quite in this space, you know, I'm not quite established in this space, which is strange because it's the same desk. The chair's different, but the desk is exactly the same. But I still haven't sort of got everything where I want it. I've put it where I think, but some of it turns out to not be the best place. It needs to be moved. Because I haven't framed, obviously, my points, the seam allowance is still there. So I'm just going to stitch this line somewhere in the region of where the seam allowance would be. I could, of course, have turned it under if I wanted to, or I could have trimmed it off. But I'm doing this. So yeah, I have to have my tea in a minute, in a bit. And apparently I'm talking a lot about food lately, I don't know why. I think maybe it's a comfort thing. Not that I really am comfort eating, you know, in terms of eating more than I normally would, it's just the kinds of things I'm eating. Fred update, his cat flap will be arriving. Well, I've got the cat flap, but I had the chap come to measure up because the doors are double glazed. He's going to have to remove the lower panel of glass. And originally I had thought of him cutting a hole in the glass, but that apparently isn't what is done. What would have to happen would there would have to be a new panel of glass with a hole in it, and that's very expensive. So unfortunately I'm going to have a UPVC panel, which is not an ideal choice, but you know, Fred needs to get in and out. So it's just the doors have got 2 panels. It's only the small, you know, a small panel. So that will be happening, he said, within a couple of weeks, and I kind of said, oh, could it be as soon as possible, because because I've got the bathroom window open all the time, so Fred can go in and out when he wants, because that's what he's used to. And then I've got the bathroom door wedged open, obviously, so he can get in there. And it's getting a bit chilly to be doing that. But he's very chilled and happy. He's, you know, he's going in and out and he just seems settled. I'm amazed how quickly he's adapted. I was quite worried about him, you know, before I came here. How he'd settle when he was used to quite a rural location. And he'd been there obviously his whole life from a kitten. But yeah. And because dogs are bonded to the people, aren't they? And dogs are used to being taken on holiday and, you know, taken out in the car and taken on walks and all that kind of thing. But cats are much more, they say, are much more bonded to the home, the place. But apparently Fred is bonded to me. Someone in the comments put it a lovely way. They said that I, Catherine, have his heart. I thought that was a lovely way of putting it. I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of the lady who said it, but if that was you and you're listening, thank you so much. That was a beautiful thing to say. So yeah, I'm very, very pleased that he's settled so well. So it'd be nice to put something in my journal. I can't remember what was the last thing I put in my Wonky journal. Next week's Wonky Wednesday, I think next week and the week after will be a two-parter. And it's not going to be a kind of typical Wonky Wednesday, because I've had a little project on the go now for a while. I think I've only talked about it on my Ko-fi and not here on the main channel. And I'm coming towards the end of it, and I've been filming little snippets of it as I've gone along, because it's been quite a, you know, a lot of work, a lot of stitching. So I'm coming to the end of it, so I want to share that with you. So next week will be part one of that. I think it will have to be a two-parter because it will be quite a lot. I'm not going to say much in the way of spoilers, except for one or two words. Rice bag! Yeah, so it will involve a rice bag, but done in a slightly different way. Okay, so here's my journal. Oh, of course it was. The last thing I put in was my little G's Ben quilt. And I am going to make a blind for my little studio in that style. I made it too big again. Keep making things a bit big. Never mind. Yeah, so I thought I'd make it, because I really was inspired or wanted to make a full quilt. I just love that process so much. But I've also got lots of other things I want to do, so yeah, then I had the thought, well, if I want to make blinds, which is quite a priority, why don't I make one of the blinds, and that's a smaller window, out of you know, make a pieced piece in that style. And the other blinds will be just the furnishing fabric I got from my friend, and I'll make those with the sewing machine. But a few of you have asked about me sharing how I'm going to do that. I will share. It will be very basic, I keep saying that. Very simple. I've got I use wooden doweling, and I got some wooden doweling the other day, so I'm ready to do it. I just need to get the sewing machine out and get round to it. I really want to get my studio sorted out first, my shelving, because I go and look for something and I can't find it, and I get frustrated, and I end up having to unpack you know, different boxes to look for whatever the thing is that I'm looking for. And then I put everything back in the boxes because there's nowhere else to put it, and it's just gradually becoming more and more disorganised, and that's not what I like. So I want to get my little cubby cheesy cubbies up, cheesy cubby holes, and and then I can get everything organised. Right, there we go. I'll just do a little back stitch in the corner there to finish off. So that is, I don't know what we're going to call it. We've had a wonky star already. Wonky half square triangle star, wonky triangle star, I don't know. Wonky half square triangles, because you don't have to make a star. Like I said, you can play about with the layouts and make any number of things. If I don't put a link, because there are so many to choose from, just Google, like I said, HST is the quilty abbreviation for half square triangle. HST quilts, and you'll get millions. 5 million you'll get. But anyway, so I hope you like that and enjoy it, and it's a technique that you think you might use. I just love it. I think it's really, yeah, just something different from the straight lines of squares and strips and things. And I'm wittering now because I'm hungry. So I'm going to go and have some tea. Thank you, to drink and to eat. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to you joining me next time for more cloth tales. Bye bye.